So,
Uh,
how have you been? You must be in post production for your second film now, right?
yes, we hired one. They're only in their second week, so they're still at the very beginning. But I have seen 10 minutes of the new film, which is exciting, and I do have like a trailer I sent to investors, but maybe at the end I'll share it with you guys. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, real exciting. I'm not editing this one. I'm an editor. That's how I got my start here in LA, and so but I've never wanted to edit my own features, so it's nice to have an editor just do the thing. So
You never wanted to. Did you edit Bundy Manor?
I did. I
Yeah.
did end up Bundy Manor. So it's just you get really close to it, and you have to out of necessity. So like it was fine, but I noticed that I was getting I don't know. You've all probably felt this where like you see something, a project over and over and over again, and then you're like, I don't know what's good or bad anymore. And that happened a lot more quickly since I was editing Bundy. So it's nice to take a step back and then come in with fresh eyes later. So
Cool. Very nice.
yeah.
Um, you moved to LA. You got your start as an editor. Where did you move LA? Where did you move to LA from? And how did you make that decision? How did you end up there?
Yeah, so I'm from Utah in the States, and we're all I don't know if you've ever heard of Mormons or Latter-day Saints, as they like to be called. Grew up there. I always wanted to do film. I just didn't know what aspect, and I had no idea how to get started. And the Sundance Film Festival is in Utah, so I had that backdrop, growing up. Um, and I was lucky that I had a family. They were all big like sports and football, and I was just a little shy kid who was making stop animation with my Legos and stuff. But oh, you've done that too?
Greta does. Greta loves Lego. We've done lots of Lego stuff with her. Yeah.
Oh no way! I'd love to see it. Yeah, I love all that. When I was 21, I got my friend had a brother who owned a business, and he was like, "You guys like to make films, right?" And we were just making little funny short films, and we were like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, would you want to make a commercial for us?" And that kind of snowballed into like starting to make commercials. And then if there's one thing in Utah there's an abundance, it's weddings. So we did a lot of wedding videos, and then that's where I started to learn how to edit. But what made my decision to move from there to LA was that I made a Star Wars fan film documentary. That was I was working with a friend who was making a Star Wars fan film, and this was before Disney bought it. And he was putting in like $60,000 of his own money to make a Star Wars movie, right? That can't make any profit because it's not his. It's not he doesn't own Star Wars. So I was just fascinated by that, and again, I love Star Wars too. I don't know if I love Star Wars enough to put $60,000 into it, but I was just like, wow, that passion, and so I traveled. I filmed him making his movie. He like built sets and stuff, and then I traveled around the United States um, and filmed other people who were making fan films just out of the passion of it. And then I cut a documentary, and then Disney restarted the Star Wars Fan Film Awards, and they had a nonfiction category. So I submitted my little documentary film, and we won Audience Choice and Best Nonfiction. And then Disney bought it from me, and so that was kind of the moment where I was like, "Oh, is this something that I'm like good at? And should I like really pursue this? And if I really want to pursue this, should I make the move to Los Angeles?" And so I used that money that Disney gave me to move to Los Angeles, and yeah, been here since 2016. But yeah,
Wow. Very cool. And what have
yeah.
you? What have you been up to in those 8 years? You've been doing a lot of editing, and your first film was Bundy Manor. How much work went into that, and how did you manage that around your day job? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I always like probably since I was about 25, I made the decision like, cool, I want to write and direct feature films. Now, it didn't take till I was 30 to, so 5 years later to really start pursuing that, but I um I was getting gigs as an editor. I worked on films or shows like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, American Horror Story, and I was editing shows for like procedural, like there was a show called 911. Anyways, I was just, starting to work in the industry with editing, cutting my teeth with all that and learning and all that. But even then, I was still, even though I was kind of coming up in editing, I was just like, I could really pursue this and like really make this my full time thing, or I could start to try and pivot, and when COVID hit and we went into lockdown, um, that was just kind of the moment where I was like, well, there's nothing else to do. So I might as well come up with an idea that I could shoot in my small town in Utah. And my friends owned a theater. And so I asked them if I could write the movie, including the theater. And they were like, yes. And then I had a friend who owned an Airbnb in the same city. And so I asked if we could film in the Airbnb. And so all these pieces started to come together, and I was realizing we could make it for very cheap. And that's how Bundy Manor came to be. It was just like it was very specifically like we're going to crowdfund. It's going to be very low money, um, but we're going to use the assets that we have available, and we're going to make something. And I know you also, Leo, have done that, and that's why when we met in I always forget if it's Kentucky or Virginia.
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 Yeah.
But I know you're also very familiar with that, and just using the assets you have around you to make a story. And uh, which is why I loved your guys' films as well. So yeah, that's kind of how Bundy Manor started. Is that we crowdfunded, we got the 60K for that, and yeah, we made that.
Wow.
So.
Excellent. How did the crowdfunding go, and how did you decide to do that funding route at first?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a interesting decision because I, I guess we just decided because we were just making it for free always, and well, I never made a feature, but I was making shorts and stuff and just asking friends for free, and I think it just came to a decision that we wanted to try and elevate um, our filmmaking. J Watt, my production company, J Watt. Um, and so when I moved out here, I was in improv and comedy and stuff. That was just a way to like, get to know people. And all of them had their own projects, and they were getting crowdfunding for 60 to 80K for their projects. And I was like, whoa, like how are you guys? I know that's a small amount, but for us filmmakers, it's enough to get something done. So I met with them and asked them, and they were like, oh well, I hired a crowdfunding professional. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
We just said it.
Yeah. I was like, wow. So we hired him. Super cool guy. He's called the Kickstarter guy. And he taught us like a bunch of just like tips and tricks of like how to get, and don't get me wrong, it became another full-time job. On top of editing, it was another full-time job. And it was, man, I mean, I was going through all my friends and family and asking, and I was, we were making posts, we were holding events, we were doing giveaways, like we did a lot of like things to like get people interested. And so, but yeah, it took it took a lot of effort, and I'm very glad we did that because it prepared us for the funding stages for Demonetize, and like it was, I don't know, that hard work and hustle just kind of like transferred over to that. Um, so I, yeah, but it paid off. And what's really fun is like we've met people who still support us, and some people who donated like $2,000. Like we had one investor who ended up for Demonetize investing 25,000, and it was just a really smart decision. We didn't realize that was going to happen. So like I'm not trying to take credit for that. It's just something that. But and yeah, we have a lot of like I hate to call them fans, I guess backers. We have a lot of backers who still support us even to this day and are still like pumped to see stuff come up who I've never met before Bundy Manor. And so um, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
It does. No, it does. That was an excellent answer.
Okay. Okay.
Next, there's so many ways to take it. I want to know more about the comedy because do you have ambitions to be an actor, or was it just to learn about what it means to be an actor to help you as a director, or what?
Yeah,
Which
well,
was your ambitions?
it's funny. I think so. Uh, have you all heard of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Comedy. So I grew up on that show, and in high school, I remember I was taking like drama classes because they didn't have a film class, and so I was like, well, this is the closest I can get, to that. And one of the kids walked in and went up to the whiteboard and did improv auditions today, after school. And I was like, whoa, there's an improv. And again, that just kind of spiraled. And eventually, when I went to college in Utah, um, there was another improv team in college. But what was really cool about that improv team is they were like traveling. So they would go to Los Angeles and they were making a lot of friends out there. And so I was just kind of like, well, I like improv. I like um I like friends. So I'll just go and, do improv. So I graduated from like UCB and iOS and Second City. They're like kind of like these big comedy places out there. But
Wow.
and they gave me some of like my first editing paid jobs because all of them were making short films and stuff. And like I said,
Yeah.
crowdfunding, and they needed editors. And so no, I never really wanted to be an actor, but I just kind of fell into improv. But it is funny because improv, man, I mean, obviously every actor should do it, but even like one improv class might be good for filmmakers because you're constantly thinking on your feet, as I'm sure you all know, and constantly having to pivot and adjust and be like, cool, this person didn't show up. What are we going to do? Or, hey, this location fell through. What do we do now? And yeah,
No,
it helps a lot.
We've talked to so many filmmakers now, and I think everyone. I mean, we start at no budget level, and I was always thinking, God, when I start to involve a little bit of money, I can't wait for all of this chaos to stop. And that's not how it works. It's not how it works at all.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way at every level. It's what filmmaking is, and I think that accepting that is really useful. And it's very unfortunate. But once it happens, and then you go, this is normal, then you're not panicking all the time. You just go, it's your job to react to it and figure it out. Yeah,
absolutely.
And then I mean, I'm sure you like love to deconstruct things that you like, and then you learn about all these shows about things that you love, how they could have been if this actor was in it instead, and the timing didn't work, and it's the story behind everything, So it's
yeah, and even in like television show, like when I was editing for TV and stuff, there would be moments where I have spent hours on a scene. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, not telling me at all, they'd come in and say, hey, we reshot this. It's much better. Put that in there. And it's like, what? Like, okay. So yeah, it happens still at every level.
So I want to talk a bit more about Bundy Manor and then get to your latest film. And Bundy Manor went to a few festivals, and then we just got to watch some clips of it now on, is it Horror Central it ended up on?
Uh-huh.
How did you go about the distribution process? How did that work?
Yeah, so we made it for that $60K. We We did pretty much everything for post ourselves, and then when we were ready for film festivals, uh, we had varying degrees of success for festivals because it didn't really have like a big name or anything, but we still think it was a fun movie. Like it says something unique. It's not perfect, of course. No movie is, um, but yeah, we submitted to a film festival. It was called Another Hole in the Head.
Oh yeah, I've heard of
uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's out in San Francisco. Really fun festival. Highly recommend. And I know it's in the States, but it's a really cool festival. And we submitted there. And yeah, when we submitted, we got a few messages, and people were like, "Hey, we really want to distribute your movie. We think it has a unique point of view, and like we want to put it up, and so it was kind of our first taste of distribution. And we went through a company called Buffalo 8, um, and they basically would put it on. They're the ones who put it on that horror YouTube channel. Funny enough, that's one of the places we've made the most money, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, they also put it on Tubi. They put it on Amazon and Plex and all those fun stuff. Um, but yeah, I think it was fascinating because we kind of thought they had a marketing budget, which is why we went with them over others. But man, that marketing equated to really nothing. And we ended up having to do our own marketing. And luckily, we have one of my producers. He works at Pinterest, which I didn't really know what Pinterest was, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, he really knows like how to get people, it in front of people. And we were also kind of lucky because it came out during a documentary that highlighted a real life person who he didn't, well, as far as we know, he hasn't killed people, but he does like straight up torture them, and they sign waivers to get tortured pretty much. And this documentary came out on Hulu the same week our movie came out, and it was insane. That week was nuts because it was during October. And we were the most watched horror movie on Tubi for like 2 weeks, and I was like, "What is happening?" And we were getting hit on our socials and from both sides, right? People who love this guy, people who hate this guy, and my Mormon friends who saw it were like, "Oh, it's such an anti-religious movie," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm not personally religious, but that movie is anti-religious, so I don't know. It was a fascinating time. But yeah, the distribution process really taught us a lot about like always having a plan, and with Demonetize, our next film, I mean, we shot a bunch of like marketing stuff on set, and like we're pre-preparing just in case again we run into this situation where we have to do our own socials. And again, luckily I'm an editor, so I've got to edit a lot of clips, and we've studied other films that have done successful with marketing, and um, that has come in big handy is editing. That's another thing I hope a lot of filmmakers learn is even just a little bit of editing will go a long way. So yeah.
Tell me a bit more about your team. Who's in J-Walk Productions?
Yeah, so it's me, and then like I mentioned, Clyde. He's like our marketing and business guy. He kind of seals the deals with everything. And then there's Tim. He's he's been in the industry for a while. He's like our he's like our he does all the paperwork. And he's make sure we're all like in line and doing everything legally. Demonetized, we did SAG production because we got bigger actors on it, and so um, he made sure we were following all the rules with that. And then Terrence, who's probably the most seasoned out of all of us, he's been on like 300 films at this point, and like from various degrees of budgets, and so that was so incredibly helpful. He's a line producer, so basically he's in charge of like coming up with our budget and then making sure we stick to that budget. And every investor, so yeah, for our second movie for Demonetize, we went the investing route, and that was probably one of our the best things we had was like we had a very comprehensive breakdown budget of every little thing of where the money is going to go. Um, and yeah, and that's Terrence. And his big breakout movie that's got his start was he was on the Sharknado movies. If you've ever heard or seen
Fantastic.
those,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, those are who's on JWAT right now, and it's an ever growing team, but and not getting paid yet, but we're working on it.
You're not alone there. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. You talked a little bit about it. It sounds like you transferred a lot of learning from Bundy Manor into Demonetize. You've changed your money, your financial strategy. What else? And also, it seems like you want to go. Do you want to go bigger and more ambitious with each film? Is that what you're trying to do, or?
I think so. I mean, don't I'll be so happy if we stay at yeah, we made Bundy Manor for 60K. This one we're looking, we're still in the phases because we're still in post production, but it's looking like we're going to be at 300K for this next one. And that was quite a jump, and it did bring a lot of pressure. But yeah, it was we just tackled it a whole different way. And there was a time where we were like, basically, I gave myself a deadline where I was like, there has to be some kind of movement on this movie, or else we're going to do a Kickstarter again. Because we need to make this movie. And I don't want to, the last thing I want to do is stall, and I feel like I just want to keep the momentum going. And we released Bundy Manor in 2023. So, the fact that we released it in 2023 and then shot another movie in 2024, I think that's pretty good. Hopefully, we can keep that going. But yeah, everything I learned from Bundy transferred over to Demonetize, and that was from everything. Like, I wrote the script. Like, I think Bundy Manor was a little too ambitious for the budget size, even though I had access to all the locations and stuff. It was still a lot to move locations. I'm sure you all know that when you move to a different location, I mean, you've got to pack up your stuff, you got to put it in the car, you got to travel. It's just a lot to do. And so, and then, we had multiple days. Like, it took months in the timeline of the movie, so we needed different costumes. And so with Demonetize, I was like, okay, so for the next movie, it's going to take place one night. And so, that would mean, in one location. So that means they don't need to change costumes. They're going to be in the same costumes. And then one location, which is going to save us a lot of money uh, um, just in that aspect. But then since we're saving money there, we can allocate it to bigger actors and, bigger effects. And yeah, I just learned a lot from Bundy. And so I applied it to Demonetize. So what happened, why we were like, okay, we're not going to do Kickstarter anymore. We're going to shift to this other format, was that I worked about a year on the script and just getting advice from some people I've learned, I've met in the industry and like creative people I just really respect, got a ton of notes and feedback. And then I kid you not, we made a list of probably 150 actors. And they were just people ranging from huge, like, what the hell? Are they going to say yes? No way? To, maybe they'll say yes, And we sent an email out to every single one of them. And how we did that was through IMDb Pro. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you exactly how we did that. On IMDb Pro, you can find the agent's info most of the time. And we made a pitch deck of just like, here's what it looks like, here's what it's going to feel like, and this is where we think your client would fit in here. And I would say out of the 150 emails we sent, 140 came back as no. But hey, the 10 said either yes or maybe. And we got into conversations with some really cool people, and like I was fascinated that they said yes. And we were very transparent because a lot of them asked, like, do you have the funds yet? And we were like, no, we don't have any money at all. And they were like, okay. And then the first person who said yes was Matty Cartolopol. He's in Stranger Things. He's in Fallout. He's in Reservation Dogs. He's in a lot of stuff. But he said yes because randomly we hit him up. He read the script and he was like, hey, I'm a ghost hunter. And this movie follows ghost hunters. And he was just like, I love that stuff. So I want to do this movie no matter what. And we were like, oh my gosh, really? And then that snowballed into Doug Jones. And Doug Jones is one of my biggest idols. Like, there's a part in the movie that I was like, it'd be great if we got a horror icon to be in it. And Doug Jones, his agent was super nice. He was super nice. And his question was like, do I have to wear makeup? We were like, no. Like, prosthetics? And I was like, no, you don't. You would just play, a normal person. And he's like, he read the script and he was like, I love what this has to say. I love Maddie. I'm in. And then once we got Doug, we were like, oh my gosh. Like, and again, we were very transparent. We didn't tell them anything. We didn't say like we had money when we didn't. That's very important. And they were just like, I can't believe these people are saying yes to us. What do we do? And so, and it also came from like my past experiences, of like in the pitch deck, I made sure to list that I worked on Always Sunny and American Horror Story. So then we just started to like reach out. Like I said, we reached out to some of our past backers from our Kickstarter. We were posting on like a bunch of Facebook groups. We basically did what we did for Kickstarter, but what was interesting is we needed less people to say yes. For for Bundy Manor Kickstarter, we had over 400 backers, and for Demonetize for investors, I think we have 7 investors. So you needed a lot less people, but you still had to put in a lot of that work, And then it was really hard to get that first person to say yes. But once they did, more people were like, oh my gosh, okay, so you are doing stuff and you are, and we had to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row as far as investment goes. Like, it's the boring part, unfortunately, but it's important, like having all the documents for them to look at and make sure they know that you're being legit and not dishonest. And and then we shot the movie in October of this last year, and then we are in post-production. I can't believe you guys are the first people I've talked to since it's happened. So like it's me processing. So sorry if I'm talking a million miles a minute, because it's like,
no, it's exciting.
It feels
for us too.
Okay. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy how that all came together. So, and we did shoot it here. So I think that was another thing that was appealing, because they lived here, right? They've been having to travel to like Georgia or other places, so that they were excited to just shoot something in their backyard, pretty much. But yeah.
Lovely. But yes, I want to know, was it scary directing Doug Jones?
Oh God. Yes. I'll tell you a quick story. So a couple things happened right before. One, I had a friend who didn't know that Doug was in the movie, but I had a friend who ran into Doug Jones at Comic-Con in San Diego and was just like, oh, Doug, like, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. Like, what have you been up to? And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm doing a movie. It's called Demonetize, and he was like, "Are you serious? My friend's directing it. That's insane." And he talked about how much he loved the script and he's so excited. And I was just like, "Oh, the guy didn't need to say that." So, we called it D-Day, which is probably not a great thing to call it because of history, but that's what we call it. And we actually shot it at an actual mausoleum, and I'm literally just like walking out to the front, seeing if he's showed up yet, and then like going back and like, oh, and then I hear over the walkie, it's like, "Hey, Doug has arrived." And so I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And so I'm like, "Play it cool, let him go and get settled first, then go talk to him, like, don't bombard him." And we were at like I said, in the mausoleum, so it was literally in like a cemetery in the back. And one of the producers comes up to me and says, "Hey, you need to rein your actor back. He's causing problems." And I thought he was just being funny, and I was like, "Ha ha ha." And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm being serious. Doug is like yelling at people." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I run first to go talk to, and don't worry. I run to go talk to the actor, or sorry, the crew member who through the grapevine said that he yelled at him. And I was like, "Hey, to the crew member, are you okay? Is everything all right?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh, well, everyone is saying that like you got yelled at." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. What I said is how amazing it is that Doug is here. And when he showed up, he was like, I hope I'm not the only one who got lost in the cemetery being funny about, being Doug Jones being lost in the cemetery." And that's all it was. But that, again, had my anxiety hearing that. But again, it was all just a miscommunication. So then I go back there, and as soon as he sees me, he bolts and just gives me a hug. And I kept telling myself, he's just another actor, like just another actor. But it's Doug Jones, man. And so I just like did my best to, treat him as an actor. And then he was like, he's kind of a zany character. Do you mind if I like play around with it? And I was just like, yeah, of course, Mr. Doug Jones. Do whatever you want. So yeah, and it ended up being good. And, I think it just like he would come to me, and like I thank him so much for that, because I was just really intimidated at first. So to have him come to me and be like, "Hey, can I try this?" Or, "Hey, asking that permission from the director really kind of broke the ice, I guess. And then we were just having fun, and we were like throwing ideas at each other, and he really made the character his own, and I can't wait for people to see him, because it is nothing like you've seen him do before. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. It's very cool. Thank you so much. I'm so honored that we're the first people that we get to speak to you.
Yeah, for sure.
So lovely. I'm going to turn to my club and see if we've got any questions for you.
Yeah, I have a question. So, for the Bundy Manor, so you had a bit of money, of course, but were there people or things that were done just cheaply, or people you didn't pay sort of to save money?
Yeah, the couple things we did to save money with that. One, everyone got paid the same. So the crew, the cast, I didn't get paid, but the crew, the cast, everyone got paid the same, and we made sure that we like followed labor laws, so everyone is getting paid at least minimum wage. So that helped a lot with costs, and then we did do a lot of. I feel bad. Don't think I'm a crook or anything, but we did a lot of like returns from Amazon.
Nice.
And that was our production designer. She was like, "Hey, this is still good. Let's just return it." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So that helped us a lot. And then yeah, I think there was a lot of extras because I filmed it in a town that I knew. Extras were pretty much free. If they had like a few lines, we made sure to give them something. Um, and yeah, we did a lot of things just to make sure it was cheap. But the one thing I didn't skip out on was like a good crafty. Like we still made sure that there was some food and snacks for everybody because even though they were doing it for really cheap, they I still wanted to make sure they had, their bellies were full. So hopefully that answers your
Yeah.
question.
And then food really helps with morale. You can pay less if you have some food.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's huge, and especially because like pizza only goes, so far, and if you have that constantly, it's like whoa, vey. So yeah, and then it was kind of cool. We gotta like help, like it's a really small town, so we gotta support local businesses and stuff, and they gave us deals because we were doing a lot of food for a lot of people, so it was cool.
How did you get the testimonials for those films? Like everyone's filming themselves on their phone, saying that they love Bundy Manor. Is that friends and family of yours, or?
So that, funny enough, some of them were backers. Like that was the thing that we did, like a perk. Like they could be in the movie if they did a certain amount of money. So that really helped. Some of them were influencers that were just kind enough to share it, and they were excited to be in the movie. And then yeah, some of them were just friends and family. Um, Funny enough, there are two of them that are in it that ended up who we just asked as friends to help film in the movie, and then when they heard that we were doing another movie, they invested 45K. So it's just you never know, yeah, when people are going to do that for sure.
More questions for Alex?
I'll ask again then. While they think.
Okay.
For cast and crew, who were professionals and who were the first timers?
And this is for Bundy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say actually pretty much everyone was pretty much either amateur or like just becoming professional. One thing that helped a lot is that a lot of the crew members especially were doing a lot of commercials and a lot of not narrative work. And so we were able to pitch to them for a lower rate because they were like, oh, well, I really want to make movies, right? I've been doing commercials and weddings and all of this stuff forever. So like, what can I do to make more narrative and movie stuff? And a horror especially, there's not a lot of horror in Utah, surprise. But I think that was another aspect. So and yeah, just making sure that they had their own creative say helped a lot, kind of pull bigger people and there was even some people who ended up saying like there was two crew members who were like, hey, I just want to devote my time, don't pay me, use the money to put towards bigger cameras and stuff like that, which was really nice of them to do. So
Lovely.
yeah.
I think you mentioned that when going from Bundy Manor to Demonetize, that was because of the huge difference also in amount of money and so on. But how do you feel it's this burden of paper trail and contracts and so on that effectively when you start to deal, especially with money and with people and with professionals, it starts to become a thing that you have to really worry about, and you might not necessarily have the experience or knowledge about it.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, it's an interesting trade-off because with Bundy, there was a very freeing type thing where we didn't have to do too much of that because it was Kickstarter, right? So they were donating the money, so we didn't really have as much of pressure and don't get me wrong, there was some pressure just because there was people counting on us, but like dollar wise, right, it wasn't as high.
Yes.
But yeah, with Demonetize, like especially with SAG, they were, and that's the union for the actors, and they were like they were on us, man. Like every day, and they would randomly show up to set and like make sure their actors are all safe and stuff, and everything was above the line. And so yeah, it was an interesting trade-off. I did think that I was like, oh well, more money means more freedom, and it does creatively, but it definitely came with a lot more like policing and a lot more like. But luckily, I had a really great team who's done that kind of work before. And what was really freeing, I will say, from Bundy Manor to Demonetize is with Bundy Manor, I was wearing 7 different hats, like director, costumer. Like I was, there was a lot of things I had to throw on, and it was hard to, one thing I'll just flat out say is like, I wasn't really there for the actors like I should have been. And I do think their performances are interesting when in Bundy Manor, and that's not their fault, that's my fault as the director, right? But that was a big thing I learned, was like, well, I really should step in and make sure that if that's going to be my primary job. So when it came to Demonetize, we were able to hire people to like make sure those things were in line. And what was really freeing is I was like trying to figure out business side of stuff, and one of the producers turned to me, he put his hand on my shoulder, and he was like, "Hey, it's time to direct. You direct. We're going to worry about this." So that was actually very freeing in that aspect. But yeah, that's an interesting question, because that does come with a lot of. It's freeing to make stuff low budget, but then and $300K is still technically low budget, but it's yeah, there's always a trade-off for sure.
Have you seen Walter's short film? We saw it in Virginia.
Envelope, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that one. That one actually came out before Bundy Manor, funny enough.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Is that how you knew he should be in it? Because there's something wrong with that man. You should check up.
That dude.
Who was he?
I'll tell you later.
Was he in the film? No.
He's the owner of Bundy Manor.
Oh, okay.
He's the actor, and he made a short film. Yep, that's the guy.
Okay.
Yeah, that dude, man, he is committed, and like, I would ask him to do some really gross things, and he was just like, "I'm in." And I was like, "Okay." Yeah, but that's a fun short, and I think coming from, again, a very religious state, just like, and I know a lot of people can identify with that. It does create some really interesting art, and I think that's I think it won like short at the festival, didn't it? Of Horrific Hope, which is cool.
I think it might have done. I didn't check up on that, but yeah, I think it might have done. Yeah,
I think so.
But no, it was great. It's certainly one of the few I remember. I'll see if we can find it later, so I can send you the link. That's very cool. And who does your nails? Do you do your own nails?
Oh yeah, I also noticed the nails.
Yeah.
Well, so my girlfriend, she always would go, and she gets these super cool elaborate nails, and I started to get jealous. And I was like, well, I want to, And so I think the first one I got was during Halloween. So the first one I got was like it said it was Bundy Manor, and it was like it was done in the text. And then I've just gone ever since. And what's really fun is I'll just go to her and be like, so like these ones, I was like, I really want it to look like this is from like a 60s, 70s spaceship. And she was like, got it. Boom. Put it on. So, yeah, it's a good time.
Does it match
but
the
now
glasses?
I'm cool like her.
Yeah.
What's that?
Does it match the glasses? Is that?
Oh, I didn't even see that. Yeah, I guess it does. That's funny.
That's cool.
Oh, and then I just bought my keyboard, which is also
wow.
Cool. That's gorgeous.
I guess I have an aesthetic.
It's like what were those? Is it the Commodore 64 or something? Had something. Like that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's based off of.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah,
very cool.
For sure.
I had a question, I forgot it. Yeah, because you mentioned again about you said something about so in a religious state, and you mentioned that some people thought that this movie was a bit anti-religious, which I'm a religious person. I did not see that at all. But my question is, because somebody said that, did you have any problems while filming or with getting people that sort of felt like they couldn't do this because of their religion, or was that
Yeah,
an
a
issue?
little bit. Actually, we had an actress who pulled out like a week or two before because she was like, because the content was too bad. And what was weird is we sent her the script way before, uh, so that was interesting. And then we Bundy Manor did get banned from 6 festivals in Utah just because this rumor that it was anti-religious. And again, I really don't know what they're talking about. There's a moment where he asks her if she's prayed, and like the villain is religious, but that doesn't mean I'm saying like all religion's bad. Like I don't know, but it was interesting to see that, and I'll be honest, I wasn't too surprised, just because I mean I grew up with Utah where they were, I remember them telling like at school women couldn't wear there was one teacher who told someone in class that she couldn't wear pants, that she should only be wearing skirts to class. And
Old school.
grew up in, yeah, just a very old mentality. So um, I don't know. It was an interesting thing. And then, my parents, they're very, very religious still. And them seeing Bundy Manor was quite eye opening for them. But it was interesting because even they were like, because it did kind of hit me. I was like, did you feel like I was saying something anti-religious with this? And they were like, no, not really. I was like, okay. So if my parents didn't even see it,
I mean, like, I'm not familiar with that community, but to me, it kind of espouses wholesome family values, if anything. It's when
yeah,
people coming together
yeah,
and supporting one another, and yeah.
yeah, and my family, like I was a child of divorce, and like um, I had my family. It wasn't a mixed family, but I did have a family of step siblings, and trying to deal with that. And I was definitely the black sheep of the family. Like I was telling you, like they were all sports people, and I was in my room watching horror movies, and only PG-13 horror movies because Mormons are not allowed to watch rated R movies. So yeah, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, and if anything, I was trying to say that like regardless of how the black sheep of the family are still your family. So
You said it was filmed during like it is a full feature film, and is this has it been in your experience that you reserve a month and you're gonna, or what do you think is best? Oh, you're gonna speed through the filming. Let's get done with the filming as soon as we can, and that's cheaper. Or oh no, if we split it out in a few different times, anyhow, just how do you feel? Because I guess it involves, of course, people, but equipment and locations and everything. You mentioned you had different locations, and it was not necessarily the best thing. So I don't know. Do you have any impressions on that, for instance?
yeah, so yeah, I mean that is one of the big things you do have to lose when being so low budget is it is pretty quick and fast paced. But I think a big thing, especially as a director, that you can do to help with that process is I always do rehearsals. So every time with my cast, I'll try and schedule at least 3 or 4 rehearsals, because if I can already get through the like coming up with what I want out of them for their performance, then we're not figuring it out on the day, and we can get through and get faster. Unfortunately, there does come times where it's just like, man, we are up against a wall,
Yeah.
and we are, we just got to get this shot and get it done, and the actor really wants another take, but it's like, I don't know what I can tell you. But yeah, that does come with a very good AD and assistant director. They're really in charge of like scheduling, and we were lucky with Demonetize. We really went above and beyond for our assistant director, and they scheduled things out so nice and so good, and like we got pretty much everything we needed, and had like time for 3 or 4 takes, and There is one big action scene that I'm interested to see how it works out because people are getting thrown, knives are flying in the air.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it'll be fun to see how that pans out. But that's one big thing I learned is like rehearsals really help, and having meetings before you shoot so that everyone is on the same page. Yeah.
Lovely. You wanted to show the? Can we see the trailer? Can we
Yeah,
watch it
we're
with
also-
you? Or
Yes. Now you can't share it with anybody.
no.
I
Let
don't
me
know
stop.
how
I'll
you
stop
do it.
recording. Let me say thanks to you on video and goodbye and everything, and then we'll just watch it. But yes, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Honorary
Means a
Stavanger
lot.
filmmaker
It means a
member.
lot.